Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on August 12th, 2021 at approximately 9:34 a.m. PST. Well, I was planning on doing, that came out well. I was planning on doing this video earlier this morning, but I ran into a snag. I was trying to figure out how I was going to go about it, because I keep running into all sorts of complications, not the least of which is the fact that there are so many people claiming to be spiritual guides or planning to be psychologists. I saw an ad the other day. Okay, now this person is I don't know what the person's name is, doesn't matter. Generic person will work well. Is claiming to be able to turn out psychotherapists at an online course. Now, there is so much complication with that thought line. Now I am not a psychoanalyst. I've never been trained. I simply have 58 years of watching people. Okay, 48 of those dealing with people directly, with people that have come to me, quite often uninvited. They just all of a sudden open up and go, "This is the problem I'm having." What I found lately is that I'm seeing it more and more, where I'm seeing somebody in absolute dire straits, and I'll open my mouth and go, "What seems to be the problem?" Or "Are you okay?" The moment you ask somebody that, all of a sudden they open up. Now, this does not mean my methods are perfect. Lord knows, I keep telling people, do not take my word for it. Do your own research. Do your own testing. The reality is that the tools that I offer are the same ones that I personally use in my own life, which is why I have things that are going on a regular basis. Oh, I know what that was. I've still got paperwork all over my desk. That is just plain normal. Okay, but then it's an office desk, so what do you figure? I've been up since, what? I think I got up at around about 5 o'clock this morning. Okay, so I've already been on the go for 4.5 hours. It's no wonder I've got stuff on my desk already. But the reality of it is this. Okay, I've had people come to me for 48 years now. And the only thing I will guarantee to you is I will not lie to you to make you feel better unless you directly ask me to. Now, of course, I've gone through a lot of things as far as what I'm not and what I am and this sort of thing. That's up to you. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything, only to get you to think. Now, you've got a choice to make, and you've got to make it sooner or later. In the long run, you'll be making it right here, right now. Because whenever you make that decision, you will be at that point. And that is the one thing that all of us have in common. Now, the choice I'm talking about is this: fear. Are you going to continue to live your life in fear? Okay, we're taught that, that change is difficult, change is painful, change is scary. Okay, you're taught to fear change. And yet, every second of every day, you are going through change. And I'm guessing you're not writhing on the floor or curled up in a corner going, "Oh, I'm so afraid." My heartbeat, and that changed everything in my body, which it does. So your choice is this: are you going to live in fear? Okay, now, what I've decided to look at is to me, the obvious inconsistencies. Okay, I listen to so many because, as I mentioned before, okay, I've been looking for a way to drop my weight. Okay, now it's working. But I hear these so-called health professionals that literally will come out and tell you the old method of don't eat as much money, or don't eat as much food, and will not work for losing weight. Well, I will tell you, it's just a matter of logic. Okay, if you don't put as many calories into your body as you're expending, you're going to drop weight. Now, absolutely, you've got to have a decent balanced diet. Okay, And that does mean that you've got to take a look at, and I'm no dietitian. I mean, heck, I grew up with the idea that if it wasn't moving, it was fair game. Okay, and with my metabolism at that time, it was kind of necessary to do it that way. But that being said, okay, now talk to your own dietitians. Now, honestly, of dietitians, the one thing that I have found is the ones that are actually trained to understand diabetes are some of the best in that I've come across anyway, where it comes to diet. Okay, now somebody responded to my video. I'm not going to give names. Somebody dropped me a line because of one of the videos I'd done. And intriguingly enough, as I've mentioned before on multiple occasions, and I'll do so again right away here. Oh, by the way, if you like the videos, give me a thumbs up. Okay, subscribe to the channel so that you can get the rest of the videos coming up, and don't forget to hit that alert button so that it tells you when they come in. Because unfortunately, I'm not at a point where I can say first thing in the morning I'm doing it. My life doesn't work that way. As evidenced by the fact I was up at 5, I could have done the video right then, but here it is, 9:30 in the morning, and I'm finally getting to it. Okay, but I keep telling people, if you've got, when I mention something like, for instance, and I love my viewers, you guys, I absolutely love the comments I get. I made a comment that my coffee pot had died. Well, somebody was kind enough to send me a link as to where to get a new coffee pot. Now, I've still got that link sitting, and I will undoubtedly look at buying it in time. I happen to bypass the problem. I had an old coffee pot here. It's only a 12 cup, but that's okay. We're also right smack in the middle of summer. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm melting here. Okay, temperature is high enough. I don't need a lot of warm liquid. Right, but I got that one. I mentioned that I'm looking at striving to rebuild my pancreas, rebuild my digestive tract so that my health climbs. Because the doctors have been sitting there going, here's a pill for this, here's a pill for that, here's a pill for this. And I have yet to see a medication for me personally that the doctors have prescribed that works the way they claimed it would, except one. Okay, there was one that worked like an absolute charm. Okay, on me. But I made this comment that I was aiming at striving at rebuilding these things, including, my pancreas, my teeth, my eyes. My eyes I know what I'm doing with. Hence why these are just about useless most of the time, aside from distance. Like if I could sit closer to my screen, right, which I probably could, but it's a pain in the neck. Then that little timestamp at the bottom here I could see clearly. Okay, but I'm working on the eyes. But I got a response to that comment regarding my pancreas and what have you. And one of my viewers drops me a line, and the first thing she says is, she goes, "Here's a bunch of information for you, and I'm sorry for the unsolicited, suggestions." So I got to clear that up. First and foremost, to the individual that sent me that information. First and foremost, thank you very much. In all fairness, it was solicited in as much as I didn't ask you directly, but I did ask for information because I am not an herbalist. Okay, and I know modern medicine. I don't fault the pharmacies. I really don't. And the reason I don't fault the pharmacies is because the pharmacies will tell you, it will do, this product will do this little thing for you, and here's a stack of what it'll do to kill you. Please buy my stuff. Now, if you, with that information in hand, decide you're going to buy that stuff, why should I blame the pharmacy? It's like if somebody says, "I've got a car, but it backfires, and there's no compression in one of the pistons, and the back left tire has a slow leak," and you buy that, and he says, "Please buy it," and you buy it, why would I get mad at the salesperson? He told you everything. Now, it's a different thing if they don't tell you what's going on. Okay, but where it comes to medication, okay, whether it's natural or it's pharmaceutical, it doesn't matter. Double check the information before you do anything with it. And this is not meant as an offense to anybody. Okay, it's like I tell you, don't take my word for what I'm telling you. Look at your own evidence. Check your own research. Okay, now you've got a choice. You can live in fear. I see it all the time with people. Somebody says, oh, I've got cancer, and they go straight into panic, I'm going to die. Well, I'll clear that up for all of you. You're all going to die. Some of you, like me, get to do it multiple times in one lifetime. Not necessarily an enjoyable thing, by the way. But you have a choice. You can live in fear, whatever you're looking at. Or you can live in a little bit more of a relaxed state. You've still got all this stuff going on, okay? Like, I wouldn't recommend, there's a lot of different ways you can do things, okay? And I fight with it myself. Why continue? Well, I finally got a video sent to me. My little brother sent me one this morning to explain that. Because the message I dropped with him, okay, and this is why I say I'm not perfect, but like I told him, I said, how in tarnation, with my mind the way it works, how do you block things out? Because I'm seeing so much greed, so much debauchery, and so much flagrant stupidity. Okay, and so many false claims, right? Now, I've heard it from, I get it from all over the place. Now, I phoned him up and I said, well, I texted him. And I says, how do you block it out? Like, I'm looking at this and my hands are tied, or at least that's what it feels like. So he sends me a 20-minute video. Okay, and that video, when I watch the thing, right, basically the first 15 minutes goes, okay, you're on the right track. What you're seeing is happening. And it's not that I was looking for proof, but corroboration is handy. Okay, and this is why I do a lot of this, is I share what I've gone through and the tools that I personally use. And hopefully, as one viewer wrote me back, following the two of the guidelines that I laid out for them, and that I've laid out through these videos, has helped some people. Now, my viewership is nothing compared to the gamers. Okay, I mean, let's face it, I'm only dealing with just over 100 subscribers. My goal, frankly, and I know this is a long goal, is to get this message out. The one message I return to bring people is that working together, we can make this a better world. Okay, but the reality is it doesn't matter how good the tools are. If you don't pick them up, they're not going to do you any good. And you're the only one in existence that can be successful for you. Okay, so do I appreciate the feedback? Absolutely. Okay, when I get feedback like I did from this, I think I don't recall if they said they were a licensed herbalist or had simply been trained at it. Okay, but in any event, they had the information, and I love the way a business person put it to me one day. All the degree, and this is no offense to anybody out there with a degree. Okay, but what this gentleman said, and he showed me his business card, and he had 4 lines of degrees on one business card. And he says, I got 3 other cards just like it at home that have just as many degrees. But he says, the one thing you got to understand about anybody with a degree, all the degree actually tells you, and this was his opinion, and I just happen to frankly agree with it. All that degree tells you is that that person had a good memory at the time they got the degree. That's all it tells you. I've talked to people that are educated in all sorts of fashions. Okay, and I tell you, some of the things I do, they're just absolutely bizarre. I remember one conversation I had with a young lass about, and this is going to sound Swahili, it's not. Okay, but I ended up talking to her about something called an OTE drive. the oscillodensification and the tritransstampatial equilarity. Okay, it's a starship drive. Now, I do not have any more than my grade 12 education. I successfully failed college. But when I got talking to this young lass, we found out that I was talking about things that she hadn't touched, and she had her master's in both rocketry and astronomy. Okay, so of course her comment to me was, well, how much education do you actually have? I said, I don't know, I successfully failed college. Right. And then she filled me in on that side of it. So I'm not worried about whether somebody has a degree behind their name. Okay. If you've got the information, I will double check it. There's no question there. Right now, where it comes to herbalism, that happens to be one of my shortfalls. Okay. But I have a problem with people that, and I'm seeing this all the time. People are coming out of school being told they're intelligent, that they know what they're doing. And they come out expecting this incredible world. Well, here's the bad news for you. The way the world is going right now, people are, and check the IQs. I got one report, and whether I believe it or not, I believe it only from the standpoint of I know I've been seeing a decline in people's cognitive capacity. Or more to the point, the amount they're utilizing. But 10 years ago, the IQ, whatever methods they're using, the average IQ of a person was listed at 100 to 130 points. Okay. I just saw a blurb the other day that says that today, 10 years later, the average is between 85 and 115. Now, this tells me we've got a massive decline. Now, you can continue on that path. But it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like the lemmings. Every 4 years, lemmings will commit mass suicide. Now, they've got a reason. Okay, I always thought it was kind of weird until I looked into it. The reason that they commit mass suicide, and that they get absolutely bizarre, is every 4 years, their primary food source goes toxic. I think it's Mother Nature's method of population control. Now, you can continue on the path you're using. You can continue doing things like this. Just gotta reach over here because my arm isn't working as well as I'd like. That probably faded. But you can continue using things like this. Standard calculator, computer, whatever your calculation form is. You can continue using electronics. You can continue relying on technology to do the little things for you. Now, Lord knows, I've got a washing machine down back. I am much happier using a washing machine than I am washing by hand, although I've done both. Okay, in all fairness, my first washing machine was, and some of you older people like this, my first washing machine when I moved out, or more to the point when I got married, was a wringer washer. Okay. Now, you can continue using a calculator to do your calculations, or you can take the time to grab a sheet of paper, or just figure it out in your head. And I'm talking just basic math. Okay. You can continue doing that and relying on technology to do all the simple things. I'm a firm believer technology has its uses. Okay. But here's the thing that I'm really having troubles with. Now, I've got books on various different alien races, and I keep hearing, I'm finding more and more people coming out with this comment, because I've told people, I've made no bones about it, my understanding of it, and I'm not here to prove whether it's right or wrong, but my understanding of the races I deal with are what I've personally dealt with, hence why I'm documenting it all. Okay. But now what I'm finding is more and more people are coming out and going, I'm in contact with these people, and I'm not in contact with royalty of many of them. Okay, yes, I do connect with the consortium, and if you watch my videos that are subtitled "Races of the Worlds," and that's where I'm going to cover this little topic a lot more in depth here, probably today, but certainly within the next couple. But, like, and this applies even when you look at people that say, oh, I'm really mechanically inclined. I mentioned one the other day. The guy said he was really mechanically adept. Now, if you're going to claim that you are something, please make certain you actually are. The gentleman with the mechanical side came over and could not get anything done that I knew should have been basic. I'm not mechanically inclined. I mean, I figure if I find the oil cap, I did well. So, technically, I am mechanically inclined. When I'm inclined, I phone the mechanic. Okay. Now, the reality of it is, if you're going to claim that you're capable of something, quit putting people in danger by not knowing what you're talking about. And I do mean that quite literally. I had a situation the other day that literally has created that problem, and I see this happen. Sad to say, I see it happen with psychologists all the time. They miss the obvious to me. Okay. And rest assured, I had my problems growing up. I'm not perfect. Okay. But the thing I found by watching people is this. They beat the stuffing out of their other half. Okay, or out of their kids. And then they turn around and right after they've done the beating, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry, I won't let it happen again. It's your fault I hit you. And I'm thinking, like, I just don't get that. I ran into a chap one day that was tearing a strip off his, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or his wife, but he was tearing a strip off her in public. And he made the mistake of catching me on a bad day, and he looks at her and he goes, it's your fault I'm drinking. Now, this guy had to be over 300 pounds. I mean, he was huge. Okay. And I'll tell you, the size of him, whoever this woman was, would have fit inside one pant leg. Okay. And it just caught me on a bad day, and I looked at the guy and I went, I know it's none of my business, but are you really seriously wanting other people, including her, to believe that she held you down and poured that alcohol into your mouth? He goes, well, no, that would be stupid. I said, well, it's pretty stupid blaming her for your drinking. I won't debate that she may do things that are aggravating you, or you're doing things that are aggravating her. But it's your choice you picked up the bottle. It's your choice you grabbed hold of the needle. Yes, there are physical addictions, and this is why they have groups that are specifically trained to help you get out of it. But even with all the guidance they've got, okay, you're still the one that's going to have to deal with it. Okay, it's just that simple. Now, things are getting, well, in my opinion, stupid. And the reason I say stupid is because you know better and you're doing it anyway. Okay, people are looking at things. I mean, an obvious example is the number of people that claim that it's their right to drive. Okay, well, in all fairness, it's not. You're talking about a right to climb into a 2,000 plus pound weapon. Okay, and it's your right to drive that however you please without knowing what you're doing? Certainly, you have the right to go and get training, but the driving is a privilege. Okay, and I've seen driving instructors, even in that regard, they go, oh, I'm a driving instructor, so I know what I'm doing. And they don't even follow the basic rules. And this is what I mean by if you're claiming to be a professional at something, for pity's sakes, have the gumption to get the proper training and have the right backup. Okay, the number of people that are claiming to have abilities or have insight and going out and spreading this information around. I mean, I know of one psychologist in myself that has called me consistently, and she has people lined up out the door, and I'm thinking, you've got to be one of the densest psychologists out there because she's doing things that are absolutely self-destructive. Okay. Now, do I do things that are self-destructive? Well, that depends entirely on if you think drinking coffee is self-destructive. I used to drink alcohol. I used to do a lot of drugs. I've stopped both. Okay, I used to do a staggering amount of sugar. Okay, came up, things were not working well, and this is why I will go back over the letter that was sent me. and I will go and figure out where to get it in town here. I presume a natural health food store is probably where I'm going to end up going. Because with some of the stuff, well, I wouldn't know the plant if I walked in, if I tripped over it. Well, that's not true. Dandelions I can recognize. Okay, but what I've got to find out now is what to do. And again, to the person that sent me the information, the added insight into how to rebuild my pancreas and especially my teeth is definitely just so that you don't have to worry about whether it's unsolicited. I'm going to ask you directly to give me the information, because the reality for me is I cannot go into the hospital to get my teeth done because I suffer from PTSD triggered by the hospital, and I'm essentially immune to local anesthetic. So there's no way I can go and get my teeth done by sitting down in a dentist's office. So the only option is to rebuild it. So any guideline on that, I'm certainly not going to complain about. And this way, for those of you that are listening, when I mention something like this, it's no longer called unsolicited. The fact that I didn't come out and say, would somebody please, absolutely find this for me? That, if I'm asking a person directly, I'll ask them directly. This is just simply the way my life has always gone. Yeah, I'm still melting, but that's okay. Anyway, the choice you have to make is, are you going to keep living your life based on the fear that is being propagated? Okay, statistics can warp everything out of place. Okay, and for decades, I was about to say centuries, but let's face it, the radio or the TV hasn't been out for centuries. For decades, media, the TV and what have you, have used subliminal programming, repetitive programming to make you want things, to make you desire to do things. Okay, it's a proven fact that certain scents will trigger appetite and what have you. I know for myself at Christmas, right? I will take apple juice and I will put a liter or two or a half gallon of apple juice on the stove at simmer. Throw a teaspoon of cinnamon into it and a half a dozen cloves, and I'll turn it on. And I'll just leave it simmer throughout the day. Okay. The scent that comes off it absolutely improves the atmosphere around the house. So you can use scents, you can use sounds, you can use sights, all sorts of things to reprogram. But it's your choice whether you use these tools or not. Now, I know the tools that I offer are ones I personally use and ones that I have personally passed on to literally thousands of other people. Rough guesstimation, about 80,000 under my belt. Okay. Now, with that in mind, I think we're wrapping up here. Yep, we are. So with that in mind, I will be back again tomorrow, okay, at some point. But absolutely, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to share the daylights out of it. It's time people started realizing we do not have to live in fear. It is time for us to put the fear aside and start working together regardless of who you are, regardless of where you sit in life. We are all right here, right now. And we either change life right here, right now, or we have the same thing that has happened in countless occasions over history. So, until tomorrow, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.